My mother-in-law took my passport and burned it. It went up in flames quickly and turned to ashes. Now I can't go on my vacation to St. Bert's Island. I was shocked and asked, "What's going on?" She smirked and said, "You're a stranger here, so you'll be staying home," while my husband grinned too. I was horrified by their cruel trick. I knew they might do something like this, but I didn't expect them to be so sneaky. They looked pleased with themselves and even laughed in a nasty way. Then I told them who I really am. My name is Tyra, I'm 29, and I study linguistics at university. Since graduating, I've been learning about different languages and cultures and sharing what I know. My organization sends me on trips abroad, and when that happens, I'm gone for a few months. When I first started this job, I thought marriage wasn't something I'd ever do. But when I went back to my home country at 26, I met Corey, who eventually became my husband. Because of my job, I only see him for a few months at a time before I had to travel again. We stayed in touch with phone calls and emails while I was away. 2 years later, at 28, we got married. Even after our wedding, I continued to spend half the year working abroad, so we were apart a lot. I'm thankful he chose to marry me despite this. Today, I'm heading home from the airport. It's the first time I'll see my husband in 5 months. I should be tired, but I'm excited and walking quickly. When I got home, Corey wasn't there yet, so I started tidying up. I always tell him to keep the place clean, but it's a bit messy. Normally, this would upset me, but today I'm willing to overlook it because I'm just happy to see him. While I'm cooking, I hear the front door open. Corey walks in, and I rush to greet him. "Corey, welcome home. It's so good to see you." "Oh, hi, Tyra. You're back. Is that all you can say? We haven't seen each other in 5 months." "Well, we've been living like this for a while, so I'm used to it." "What? Can't you at least say you missed me?" What? I'm tired. Anyway, is dinner ready?" "Yeah, I just finished cooking. Let's eat." Eating with my husband after so many months feels like the best meal ever. Normally, I'd be happy with just this, but today feels a bit different. "Hey, Corey, why do you keep staring at your phone?" "What? What's the problem?" "Nothing's wrong, but I'm finally home." "You've been glued to your phone and haven't really talked to me. We've been in touch through calls and emails all this time, haven't we?" "There's nothing new to talk about now." "That might be true, but it's been a long time since we've seen each other like this." "So why?" My frustration with my husband's attitude makes my voice rise. It looks like my comment upset him. He stood up, put his phone on the table, and glared at me. "You know what? You were just on a plane, but I'm exhausted from work." "Got it?" "Hold on. I also jumped on a plane right after work. Didn't you talk to me like that?" "I didn't ask you to do that. You just rushed home on your own." "What? You don't have to say it like that. I missed you. I'm just saying I didn't ask you to come home. If you're going to be like this, don't come back at all. You're being annoying, Tyra." He slammed the table and stormed out of the living room, leaving his dinner untouched. What's wrong with him? Why is he being so cold? I haven't seen him in a long time. Was I the only one excited to see him? What's the point of coming home early if it's like this? Tears fell from my eyes and onto the table. Our reunion was even more disappointing than I had feared. The next day, his attitude didn't improve. When I greeted him with a good morning, he looked at me coldly. "I envy you," he said. "You get to relax at home all the time while I'm stuck working." "That's not true," I replied. "I have a lot of work to do, like summarizing our activities and preparing for the next training session. It's a lot of work, more than you think. Either way, it's something you can do at home. I wish I had a job where I could spend half the year like that." "You don't have to talk like that." "Well, I'm just a company guy, so I have to go to work. You enjoy your time at home, princess." "What the heck, Corey?" Ignoring me, my husband left the house. We had a few arguments before we got married, but he had never been this sarcastic. I was really confused by his behavior and wondered if his words were causing problems between us. I thought about what I might do to improve the situation. While I was going through work materials, I decided to tidy up the house. As I was vacuuming and changing the bed linens, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. Feeling uneasy, I answered the call. "Hello, Tyra here." "Hi, Tyra. It's been a while. I heard you're back home and that you arrived yesterday." "Yes, that's right. And I also heard you upset Corey." He was quite angry. "I'm sorry, but it's nothing that should concern you." Well, since you're back, how about we plan a family trip? What? I was taken aback by her suggestion. Before I could respond, my mother-in-law continued. I was just talking with my husband about going to St. Bert's Island, and Corey mentioned he wanted to join us. What? That's... So Tyra, you're used to traveling abroad, right? Could you help us with hotel reservations and other arrangements? Me. Or are you having trouble understanding what your mother-in-law is asking you to do? Her voice grew colder. It was clear she didn't really want to travel with me. She just thought it would be easier for her since I'm experienced with travel. I knew my mother-in-law didn't have a high opinion of me. She'd been sarcastic ever since we first met at the wedding reception. Even after 2 years of marriage, things hadn't changed. I often received messages from her while I was working abroad. How can you be a wife and stay away from home for months? If you don't take care of the house, I'd rather my son marry someone else. It was a mistake to let him marry you. That's the kind of text I used to get from her. So I had a bad feeling about this call. I never imagined I'd be used for planning a family vacation. But maybe it's better than the usual verbal abuse. I was frustrated with myself for not being able to say no, even though I knew I was being used. A few hours later, my husband came home from work in a much better mood than earlier. He tossed his briefcase on the sofa and, smiling widely, called out to me. Mom called, didn't she? We can go on a trip to St. Bert's. Yeah, I heard. But you know what? What? You're not thinking of turning it down, are you? Mom wants you to come with us, I understand, but why don't you just go with your mom and dad like you originally planned? As soon as I said that, my husband's demeanor changed. He clicked his tongue and his tone became more threatening. You need to understand your role here. The only time you're useful to us is when we're traveling. You don't have to speak like that. It's true, isn't it? Anyway, you'll handle all the flight and hotel bookings, and everything should be in my name, as you probably know. What, Corey? You're going to pay for the whole trip. What are you talking about? We'll split the cost 50-50. It's a small price to pay to show respect to our parents. What is that supposed to mean? If you've got time to lounge around at home, make the reservations now. This isn't right. I don't want to. What are you mumbling about? My husband grabbed a beer from the fridge and drank it in one gulp. I had a lot on my mind, but I wasn't sure what might happen if I resisted. I felt embarrassed, but I had no choice but to do what my husband and mother-in-law wanted. I made all the arrangements for the flights and accommodations for the trip to St. Bert's, just as my husband had ordered. On the day of the trip, I was set to pick them up at my in-laws' house and head straight to the airport. A few days before the trip, I couldn't sleep. In the middle of the night, I noticed my husband, who was supposed to be next to me, wasn't there. I went to the living room and heard him talking on the phone with someone. Oh, it's okay. It's all okay, Mom. I'll be there first thing in the morning as planned. Mom, please handle the passport issue anyway. Seriously, I'm looking forward to it. I'll make sure to introduce her to you when I get back. I was puzzled by some of what he said. Passport, introducing her. Since he called her Mom, I was pretty sure he was talking to my mother-in-law. It seemed like there was something going on between them that I didn't know about. In the first place, it didn't sit right with me that he wanted me to go on this trip. What could they be planning if I went to my in-laws' house? I didn't have all the details, but I decided to stay extremely cautious until the day of the trip. The day of our trip to St. Bert's finally arrived. I packed my carry-on and handbag, which included my husband's things as well. With everything ready, my husband and I headed to my in-laws' house. I braced myself for whatever was coming, knowing I had to deal with it. When we arrived at my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law was the only one to greet us. Oh, hi, Tyra. It's been a while. Good to see you. We're almost ready. I'm going to grab a few things for the trip, so it might be a little while. Okay, take your time. Oh, and Tyra, could you bring the carry-on case from the other room? It's heavy, so please get Corey to help you. Sure, I'll do that. I noticed when my husband and mother-in-law exchanged knowing looks. I kept my passport in my pocket, just in case. Following my husband's instructions, I carried the carry-on case back into the living room. There was my mother-in-law, smiling with a hint of mischief. She was holding my passport and grinning. Now you can't go on the trip to St. Bert's, she said. What do you mean? I'm going to burn this passport right now. What did you just say? I was just using you to handle the trip arrangements. What are you doing? You're a stranger here, so you'll be staying behind. Too bad. She went to the kitchen, lit the passport with a lighter, and watched it burn. The passport started to turn to black ashes in the sink. Once it was completely destroyed, she said, "We did it." My husband cheered. "Yeah, Mom, we made it." "No," I said. "It's just the three of us on this trip. We'll get to meet Corey's new girlfriend when we get back, right?" "Yeah, I've already set that up," my mother-in-law replied. "We don't need this useless woman anymore," my father-in-law said. "You know when something isn't working." He pulled out his cell phone and showed me pictures of himself with another woman, looking pleased with himself. "I'm not divorcing you for the sake of my reputation, but you'll be staying here while we go on our trip. When we get back, I'll move in with her, and you can leave." My mother-in-law laughed mockingly at his words. Their expressions were full of malice. At that moment, I knew I didn't belong in a family like this anymore. I forced a smile and said, "By the way, whose passport is that?" "What are you talking about?" "It's yours, of course." "I took it out of your handbag, so it's your passport." "My passport is right here," I said, holding it up. "What? Why? It can't be." I pulled my passport from my pocket and showed it to her. My mother-in-law's face went pale as she stared at me in panic. "That's not possible," she said, her voice trembling. "Yes, it's my passport. See for yourself." It seemed that my mother-in-law had snuck into my handbag and mistakenly thought she'd have found my passport. How could she have burned it without checking properly, especially with her malicious plans? "Whose passport did I burn then?" she asked, her voice quivering. "I guess it was your son's passport that was in there." "So you burned my son's passport?" she asked, horrified. My mother-in-law turned white and began to tremble. My husband, furious, started blaming her. "Mom, what have you done? I told you to be careful. I only found one passport in her handbag. Who would have thought it belonged to me? I don't care. You didn't check properly, and now look what happened. You're saying it's my fault? If you had checked from the start, I wouldn't have made this mistake. What the hell?" Before long, they were blaming each other. I was furious and disgusted by their behavior. "Hey, Tyra, do something." My husband yelled at me, but I was not about to back down. "Seriously, who do you think you are? Telling you what to do. You cheated on me behind my back. How dare you? Both you and your mother are despicable." "Hey, who do you think you're talking to?" "I'm talking to you and your awful mother. Don't think I'm just going to let this slide. You're going to pay me back for the affair and all the nasty things your mother has said to me. Be ready." Just then, my father-in-law came downstairs. "What's going on? What are you doing?" When I told my father-in-law everything, he was furious. The trip was canceled, my mother-in-law got a divorce, and my husband was disowned by his father and banned from coming home. I consulted a lawyer, and we finalized the divorce. I also demanded alimony from both my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law. They had to pay the alimony in one lump sum and cover the cost of canceling the trip to St. Bert's. Since they didn't save any money, they had to borrow to cover the alimony. In the end, they managed to repay everything by borrowing funds. Now my ex-husband lives with his mother and it looks like they are struggling financially. He was also dumped by the woman he had an affair with. As for me, I used the alimony money to move into a condo and enjoy living alone. After all the cheating and mistreatment, I went through many difficulties, but now I'm free and loving life. I plan to continue traveling, learning about different cultures, and sharing my experiences with the world. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel.